Hello, today's topic is the becoming present that happens when we're coming out of survival mode. And my name's Rachel McLeod. I'm a mental health therapist, a coach, a mentor, and I specialize in helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. The brain has a beautiful process for this, and when the brain resolves these issues, um, they're resolved. And so that means a lot less coping. That means less fighting with your brain. It actually feels like teamwork in your inner world, and like one of the most amazing secretaries, assistants, partners, um, is on your team working for you day and night. And so we want this. This is part of health and wellness. This brings a lot of deep security because you know that your brain has your back, as opposed to what it can feel like when we're in survival mode or we're experiencing symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress where our brain is working against us, which it's not. It's just that process I was talking about that's really beautiful for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress can get blocked, and it can't actually do its work. And so the symptoms back up. And really, that's what leads us to living in survival mode, that those symptoms become the predominant feature, and the brain has to respond with survival mode. And so I've been doing a lot of videos about survival mode. This is one of them. I'm doing a series about what's it like to come out of survival mode. That's what somebody in my YouTube community asked me recently, and I was like, "Yes, let's talk about it." So but it's complex, and so I decided to break it down into little parts. And so this is the part about becoming present. And it's a beautiful part, and I love to watch people become present. It's fun as I have become present. That's I don't enjoy that process as much. I enjoy the result, but the people that I'm is celebrating as my clients are coming out of survival mode, right? I don't have to deal with the adjustment period, and that's what we're going to talk about. Because as wonderful as that is, it's new, and it has to be, there's a process for this, and the more you know about it, the more you can support yourself, and the more you can get the result and enjoy the process. um, so what happens is that in survival mode, there are things that happen to us that our brain needs to understand. And if that stuff that happens to us is traumatic, that means that our brain needs to get that processed. Just like things that are happy and exciting, our brain has to get that processed. But that stuff just zips through the process because it doesn't register in your nervous system or in your brain uh, as pain. And so, but the trauma does. Inside traumatic experiences, emotional pain, somatic pain, body pain, the emotional experience in the body as pain, physical pain, um, uh, mental pain, all kinds of things that make up a traumatic experience. And those are difficult to process because the pain neurons fire. And then the survival system is responding to that. And their job is to get away from pain. And their job is to get you out of pain and away from pain as fast as possible. And that even means the pain that is moving through your system that really needs to get processed, move through the same process all the good stuff gets to go through, uh, because that stuff is from your brain's perspective, it's just as awesome. Our pain neurons are like, it's not awesome, and they will let us know. But to the data gatherers and the parts of our brain that make health and wellness, that stuff is really important. They need to get their hands all over it. They need to understand it. They need to analyze it, and they need to be able to work with it. And they can't do that if the survival system is rejecting it and moving away from it. Right? So this traumatic experience is coming up through your nervous system, your body. You might be consciously aware of this, or you might not be consciously aware of this. You might be unconscious to this process because your brain said, no, we are going to dissociate you from this. We are going to disconnect you from this traumatic experience. And even though it's moving through your system day and night, night and day, trying to get processed, we're going to make sure that you're unaware of it. However, you will notice some things happening. You will notice racing thoughts. You will notice panic attacks. You will notice feelings of dissociation. You might not experience all of them, but some of these you're probably going to experience. You might notice avoidance, fear, exaggerated startle response, flashbacks. Those are things that are more conscious, that you're watching the memories surface again, in vivid form, in visual form, maybe in auditory form. Um, Smells are bringing things back. You might notice avoidance, distraction strategies that you're doing. You might notice feeling under the dissociation process umbrella. You might feel foggy, spacey. Um, you might be missing gaps of time. You don't know what you did just a little bit before. You were driving. You don't know how you got there. It just meant your mind went blank and you dissociated. You might also notice that you don't feel like things are real, or that you're watching your life happen. That's also other how others dissociations feel. Um, and so all of those things happen until this trauma gets through the brain's process and resolved. Once that happens, the brains don't need to digest the trauma again. It needs to be able to do it fully. Sometimes we'll only get parts through, and that creates so much health and wellness in and of itself. And then we want to work on other parts and get that process, and then more. And then we want to get it processed. That's really the goal, and your system is working on that. So, if you've got those symptoms and you get things processed, you finally get it past the survival system, and they're working on it up here in your brain. You're going to notice that you start feeling safer, that there's less pain. You start to notice that you're coping less, you're distracting less. You're paying attention to things more. Maybe you're paying attention to your body, right? Maybe you've been dissociated for a long time, and now you're all of a sudden starting to come back in and be present. And what happens is in the brain. Let me see. I'm wandering off because I love this topic. Um, um, Okay, so all these unresolved issues and traumas and experiences and emotions and those sorts of things continue to fire in the brain, in the mind body system, trying to get processed. And this is what your survival system is responding to, and why it's shifting into survival mode. And you may not know why, because you might be disconnected from that, and you might know exactly why, and you're trying to mentally avoid that. That's why we distract and all the things that we do. And as these things get processed, there is more nervous system regulation. There's less of this bulky, unprocessed trauma in your body, and in your unprocessed in your nervous system, right? And it's really stored very nicely. The brain is designed to take this stuff, even if it's problematic, and help you respond to the world better, more adaptively, more courageously, more all the things. It'll take this stuff and help build feelings of safety and security and stability. That's their job. They're like, oh, this thing happened. How do we build stability with this now that we're aware of it? They don't deny that these things happen. They want to see it. They want to look at it. They want to analyze the data. They want to see what's really dangerous here and what's not. I thought it was everything, but I want to get more specific now, right? They're doing that for you, and you are experiencing the reality of more safety in your system. You're calming. The things that would have sent you through the roof are just not sending you through the roof anymore. And as the brain is receiving more signals of safety from your body and less of that traumatic material trying to move through, it reevaluates and decides, hold up, I don't think we need so much dissociation. I don't think we're in that much danger, right? I don't think this is accurate. We thought we needed all of this, but we don't. And you will see the dissociation start to lift. The brain will lift that itself. The brain will lift depression. The brain will lift all these things in response to the new information that's moving through the system, right? Once the traumatic material gets processed, it is stored much differently than just freely roaming the body like a bunch of free radicals right around here, right? So that's not happening anymore. And there's more programming for safety. Hey, you're safe. Hey, you're safe. This is why we're safe. Oh, this thing isn't happening. There's more intelligence around the safety, and it's happening automatically. It feels different. One of the signs that you'll know that this is different, that you're just feeling more safe, is when you start taking more risks. Maybe you're having conversations you wouldn't have had before. Maybe you are going places you wouldn't have gone. Maybe you're doing that thing that you told yourself never you're going to do again. You're never going to do again, like crossing bridges. Like some people have phobias about that. All of a sudden you realize, whoa, I just passed 3 bridges and didn't even think about it, because hypervigilance is ending and we are being more present to things and not present on the lookout, right? Actually present. Maybe you were watching the clouds and you were like, hey, I never noticed the clouds were doing that before. When was the last time I saw a rainbow? Right? Oh, yeah, I love it when my kids do this. This feels amazing. And we're starting to be more present to what's actually happening. And that's really cool. This brings so much growth, so much, because there's things that we're interacting with that we haven't been interacting with for a really long time, maybe ever. And so, as we're interacting with this, our brain is doing new brain functions. Our brain is like, "Ooh, we should figure out how to do this well, how to enjoy this more. We should figure out, oh my gosh, we're available for more conversations. We don't have these kind of conversation skills. We should probably go get some, right?" And they're going in here to work behind the scenes for you to really help you enjoy these moments and really benefit from them and take in all the things that are happening around you in the present. That before, it was so worried about keeping you safe and disconnected from all the pain moving through your body and all the pain that maybe could happen because they don't really understand life, because they couldn't understand what happened in those situations. So everything's dangerous. And all of a sudden, your own nervous system is allowing you to show up, be who you are, and be present. And this is really cool. This is what we're working for. Okay. Now, also, this is new. Brains don't really like new things. If your brain's not certain if it can keep you alive if this new thing happens. It doesn't matter if the new thing is wonderful, the entire thing you've been working for. It doesn't matter. So so what happens here is there's a process. Brains have a new things process that they go through, and so I'm just going to go down my list. I think that's the best thing to do. um, Now, at this point, there is an adjustment that has to take place. There's an adjustment between survival mode and being present. And I've observed that the people that haven't spent very long, the more time you spend in survival mode, the bigger the adjustment is. And this adjustment needs to be handled really well, or it can become a new trauma because it's a lot of distress. Right? So we prep for this. You're prepping right now if you're about to do this yourself. So we're talking about it. And knowing is half the battle. Really, awareness is half the battle here, because once your brain is aware, it'll start building for that. Okay, I'm not nerding out. I'm going to get to this. Okay, as you become present of all the things, one of the things that happens is you realize all the things you haven't been present for. And what typically happens here is people will start a grieving process. They will grieve all the things that they've missed. They will grieve the fact, why didn't I get this 20 years ago? I would have been such a different person. My whole life trajectory would have been different. And there's can be a lot of grief right here in this moment. So much grief that the brain might start kicking up depression, dissociation, and the like, which is okay. Those are just brain states. The brain wants to protect you, and you deserve to be protected. And we can do a lot of healing work in dissociated states. And that dissociated state has become the comfort zone. It is the familiar. And humans develop by having a safe base, a secure base, what we run back to, and we regulate. And then we go back out and try again if we're healing and processing. If we're not, we'll go hibernate out in the space and never come out. And our abilities start to get lower and lower and lower. It's a degrading process. So many of us will use dissociation as our safe place. We get too overwhelmed with the grief here, we're just going to dissociate. That's can be very normal. So you're still going to want to get in there and use your interventions. All of this stuff, the healing process, we manually are operating this at this. That's my process. We manually operate the healing process with shifting the brain repeatedly into healing states, because it's stuck in survival mode because there's so much pain moving through. But we're working with a very specific part of the brain that is where we're sending it signals of safety in its own native language. And so when it receives those signals, it allows healing to happen. It'll switch for us. It'll allow processing to happen. I do lots of videos on that. You can find those there on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're at. So we're manually operating this to get all this unresolved trauma, all these unresolved emotions and experiences processed. So When the grief starts coming, we want to influence the brain to process the grief too. Grieving is an amazing process. It's not very fun because it's pain neuron firing. It can be breathtaking. It can be heavy. It can be very difficult. And so we want to get it processed. It is ours. It is within the system. We do not want it suppressed. We want it moving through the process. And there's pacing for this, right? Sometimes we don't want to just let it all hang out, all the grief. Sometimes we do, and that's really where you need to. And if you're working with a professional, they will pace with you. They will help you take this in chunks and doses. And there's a lot of healing and transformation that comes with grief processing. And as long as it's getting processed, as long as your survival system is letting it through, there's no wrong way to grieve, except to not grieve. Right. So when people become present, we're very excited. They're like, oh my gosh, look at the things I noticed. Look at the things I noticed, and they're having fun, and they're like, this is wonderful. And very shortly afterwards, they will start the grieving process. I wish I had known this. I hold lots of space for that because it's part of this. What we are not going to do is go suppress it again and have it buried for the next 20 years and stop our healing process. So we want to get that moving too. Brains are wonderful with this, and it's how they will make, that's how they're going to make being present more of your comfort zone, right? Because it's new. You're not comfortable in this new space. Your brain isn't, and it needs to get all this data, all this emotional pain and joy processed. And the joy is not going to have a hard time. The grief is. Right? So there is a grieving period that takes place here. And it's okay. We can do both. We can do excitement that we're becoming present and grief for all we've lost at the same time. That's okay. And we're going to focus on grief that we lost because that's the sticky part. And then when that gets resolved, that'll be really combined with the positive. And this is what elevates our mood and helps us experience higher moods and also come into acceptance with our life journey. And that's really important. And there's a lot of peace that comes with that and new beginnings. The grieving is the end of that cycle. It's the end of I've lived most of my life in survival mode, or I've lived this phase of my life in survival mode. And as we get through that, we'll notice the brain automatically coming up with acceptance and peace and insight and wellness and positive self-esteem, gratitude, appreciation, those sorts of things. That stuff, we don't want to force those things because we're basically pretending that we're grateful. Those are not brain products. Those are brain tricks and illusions that we're creating. We don't want that. We want the real thing. So if we can get the grief process, the brain will automatically make for us acceptance, new beginnings, hope, courage, strength of character, self-love, acceptance, right? And looping a lot of those things over and over again. So we want that process to run. Another thing that happens is some clients report overstimulation. All of a sudden now they can hear new things, they can see new things, and they feel a sense of vulnerability and it's like just nervous system dysregulation, right? A little bit of panic and like, I don't even know what to do with all this stuff. It was like foggy and hazy, and I was used to that level of vision, and now I can see really clearly. It's like getting glasses for the first time. And the brain has to adjust to integrating, to building your neurology to see in the detail, the level of detail that you're seeing now. And so that takes some time. I find that if we're doing this process well, it's about a 3-day process. That's what I notice. Sometimes it takes a week. However, and that's to do most of the things, the discomfort, to build a level of comfort. I want to say right here a piece of this is that I have a history of complex PTSD, developmental trauma, and like basically from generational trauma. And having parents with mental illness because of said generational trauma. I have noticed that I have waves of becoming more and more present and associated. My first one was around 39. And that was a bizarre experience because I was already a therapist. I was already on my healing journey. I had been using interventions for a while. Perhaps I was already getting more and more associated and present. However, I had a big coming present moment when I was 40, and I was just like, I don't think I have ever looked at the world as clearly as I'm looking at the world right now, right? And then fast forward, I've had more and more of those moments, like maybe every couple of years. So I would say I'm a pretty associated and present person and attuned. However, apparently there's more. So I'm never going to say, oh, yeah, I'm perfectly present, because life has taught me that there are layers to this, right? And so I think this is a really good process for people to learn based on my experience, because we're going to keep becoming more and more present. The brain is going to create more and more safety, more and more security, stability of things you might not even be aware of yet or ready to integrate. And so when you get these poof moments of, hi, let me introduce you to more of life, then you are ready to make that shift for yourself, and you can really support yourself and hold yourself well in those spaces, in those transitions and adjustment periods. Okay. So clients will tell me during this overstimulation phase that they need to spend a little bit more time, some self-time, alone time. Maybe they're taking more baths. They're doing more somatic supporting. Gosh, I'm using fancy words. They're doing more like body soothing, which is wonderful. That the body's the one that has to make this adjustment. Your body has to grow new neurons and pathways, and it has to do all this association work. So we really want to care for the body a lot during these adjustment periods, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and the body has to do all the chemical building and taking down and eliminating and doing all these things. The electrical processes are quick. The mental processes are quick. The body really, we want to make sure the body's keeping up with this process, because it's the one that matters. Because if your body doesn't get the shift, nobody gets the shift. If we don't get the trauma out of the body, the trauma doesn't leave the body. If we don't build the neurology in the body, it's not built, and you don't have it yet. So that's we want to support the body during this time. They will also tell me that they start wearing earplugs because they can't handle all the sound. They need to step down to the level of intensity and availability of sound at the moment. And so they will wear that for a while as they're adjusting and coming to peace with a little bit of that, and then they'll wean themselves off of that. People feel confused, right? There can be a confusion point here, just because what the heck is happening? And is this okay? Am I okay? And I think this is good, right? And why is my mind so quiet and silent? And where is all the business? And shouldn't I be doing the things, my compulsions, and so it's just a weird space. So that's great. We want all that confusion processed. So we're processing these things. We're also processing the overstimulation. There's a lot of discomfort in this. I call it a 3-day window. I'm really pushing people to get through this in 3 days, because we can get all this distress is beautiful building material if it gets processed. So we're working to process during this time. We want it's like these little guys up here are going to be working day and night, right? But if they don't have any material to build with, they're still going to work day and night. And they're not really doing constructive things. They're just up there doing the busy work. They're probably making a mess of things and running through things that are already done and reworking it. It's what we want to do is we want to deliver the materials. This processing process is part of delivering the materials, right? And so we want them to have a lot of beautiful material to work with. And so this transition phase provides them with a ton. Okay. But there is discomfort. And one of the things people will say is, what do I do now? I don't know. What do I do now? And they'll just be one time I was going through, I was just, my mind was empty, and it's like, I like journaling. Shouldn't we be journaling? Nothing. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? And I tell my friend, I'm like, what am I going to do? I was in a survival state. And she says, well, you could breathe. Oh, I could breathe. I could breathe. It's like, of course, I'm breathing in my brain. I'm just laughing at myself because survival systems, in the survival states, you really lose all your reasoning and function. That's why it's really great to have a team around you. Because if you were to go into a survival state over nothing, like no tigers chasing you, it's really great to have somebody remind you to breathe, or to just, hey, have you noticed you're in a survival state? Maybe you could use one of your tools right now. Uh, one of those sorts of things. And so, and that was part of my process in building my personal protocol for becoming more present. And so I'm enjoying it now. But I remember during that time, I'm going to tell you, during that time, I was really salty about the absent. I was just, I was pissed. I was really upset about it. Just, I was so uncomfortable and irritable, uh, and I'm trying to have a good attitude because I'm a therapist. And so, but I'm mad. I'm just mad. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't want to read a book. I don't want to, nothing sounds good because I, I don't need them. There's peace and quiet in my mind. And I just am like, what does one do with all this time and energy? And I'll remember that I had a client come in for the first, it was a new client. It was a new client. And she came in and she sat in my chair over here. And she was just like, she was telling me about her symptoms. It was bad. It was a mess, right? We got work to do. And she's just like, I just want a calm mind. I just want some peace in my mind. And I was like, girl, in my head, because I was like, I'm not going to rain on this woman. But I said, do you really want that? It's not all that fabulous. This is torture. This is boring. I just took that opportunity mentally. I'm just salty. And so I took a breath and I was like, okay, I can see we're really salty about this. We are really uncomfortable, and we are not going to rain on this woman's parade because we are going to get through this, and it's going to be fabulous. And it has been. And it took me about 3 days to start appreciating my new sense of presence. Okay? So, um, we get to be salty. We get to be authentic. Right? We don't need to be authentic and rain on other people's parade. But it really, whatever's coming up is really what is supposed to come up. It's really what's within us, and it's getting that stuff, our authentic self process, like for the top part of our brain to realize what's going on authentically within us is really where it's at. Then they build all these things for who we are. Right? So my brain built me a desaltify Rachel program and started running it, and now I'm enjoying enjoying the quietness up there in my mind. And have found lots of new things to do since, which has been fun, and new journey, new beginnings, right? It's part of all of that. So, um, so that is really, that's what becoming present really looks like and feels like. And while I'm talking about that, I'm talking about that because it is a real thing if you're experiencing it. If you haven't experienced it, or you're in the beginning of coming out of survival mode, you can't even imagine this, right? But if you get here and you have one of these or all of these, you won't be surprised, and you will know how to work through this. And really, if you are in a survival state right now, I really want to invite you to, if you're anywhere along the journey, to try to let me teach you my 3 favorite interventions for really opening the brain's healing, shifting the brain out of survival state into healing, and getting all this stuff processed. The more you are equipped to do this, the more you can help your brain when it needs it, how it needs it, and as much as it needs it. If you don't get equipped, then you're reliant on a therapist for their hours and their schedule, and maybe you can only see them once a week, and that's the only time you can process. And I think that's a tragedy, because this stuff is so simple to learn, and it gives your brain the exact support it needs to the right part of the brain. And you can do this yourself and create massive shifts in 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Not a lot of time investment, and to really get the brain processing. Yes, there are bigger projects. Yes, if you've experienced complex PTSD, there's quite a bit of work to do. And we're using electrical processes, and when you can get the brain to do those things, you're going to get back a lot of health and wellness quickly. So you can really transform the way you do life, the way you reach your goals, and the way you show up in your relationships in as short as 2 to 6 months with victories all along the way. So I encourage you to take up my invitation, try my free program, Interventions for Inner World Transformation. Let me teach you those 3 interventions. Um, and also, if they work for you and you want to go a step further with me, I have a program called Inner World Transformation. It is my process for walking people through the brain work for resolving these symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and doing the creating health and wellness, transforming the way they do life, right? Show up in relationships and reach their goals. And so, because it's your brain's job to do all of that. And if this process is working, it can, and we can support it to do all of that, and really create sustainable health and wellness, and become who we authentically are, and have our brain build for who we authentically are. So yes, I have that program, Inner World Transformation. You can look into that. And if you want me to walk you through the process personally, I have an intensive coaching program. You can learn more about that on my website. But get started. Gosh, you can create so much transformation even in 1 week. In 1 week in my program, I get people through about 3.5 months of therapy if you follow the instructions, because we're putting that much time into the brain function. And so we're supporting your brain that much to create the results, and it does. And those results last, and they keep growing and growing and growing. So I want to just say that. And now I'm going to read a comment and hopefully answer that and then jump off. Okay. Uh, Alex says, would you say that a disability to manage the survival system is a common reason for some people to have thoughts of intentionally not surviving? If so, would learning how to move through the grief process be an alternative to suicide? Um, Even though a person may have spent 10, 20 years in a continuous state of survival mode living, there may be hope of being present and having moments of genuine enjoyment. These strategies that you're teaching may have a more hopeful outcome than what has been available traditionally for most people in our general community. Absolutely, yes. Have worked with I work with lots of people on the suicide spectrum, um, suicidality spectrum, and from highly suicidal to just not just, because it's all painful, um, thoughts, suicidal thoughts, like passive suicidal thoughts. I just don't want to wake up tomorrow. That sort of stuff. All of suicidal thinking is the brain's response to try to get away from pain. And so I use those therapeutically, those suicidal thoughts. I'm like, tell me everything. Tell me all the time. This is VIP, because the brain is running from something that we want to resolve. And so you can run, brain, but point to us where this is. And there are, most of my advanced strategies are about getting the mind body system to tell us exactly where the root issue is, where the pain is coming from. And so I teach people how to do this in my program, Inner World Transformation. It's just kind of natural to me at this point. And so we will go find that pain causing issue and resolve it, and get the brain to process it and finally complete the work there. Um, Whatever that painful thing is, once it gets processed, it will be stored in a way that your brain is like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. Brain's jobs are, one, to make you the hero, and two, help you to thrive and rock life and give you pleasure, satisfaction, and fulfillment. That's their job. If they can process, that's what they're going to do. So that thing that was causing survival level distress, like your brain is like, we'd rather die than feel this pain. That's what the brain is saying in that moment. If we get that processed, which it's usually very simple to do. The healing process is simple. Finding what needs to heal is more complex. That's really what I train people to do, so that they can quickly dive in and find whatever needs to get processed and process that. And that's what we're doing in the healing work. It's no longer painful. The brain will start to relax and become more present, and in that place, authentic wellness and strategies, and it will help you be more of who you are in that space. And so that's really where joy and satisfaction come from. And so we're kind of digging out a wound in there, and then we're planting joy and satisfaction. We're not really planted. That's natural to who we are and what our brains will do if they can heal. But it can be fun to feel like we're doing something so we can pretend that we are, but it is a natural brain process to create health and wellness. So, but that pain is blocking the system from doing that. And so, in all of my clients that have been suicidal, this is the process I use. And I have not lost a person, even my most suicidal ones. So I suspect that helping brains heal the pain that they're running from really lets people come back into their body, be well, and find joy. So that's my answer there. And and I perhaps I also attract people that want to do their inner work and healing, or that believe that they can. But even people that are reluctant, if we can, or skeptical, if we can get that pain processed, it processes. So it's absolutely transformational. It doesn't take a lot of time, and I keep going back. Hey, tell me about your suicidal thoughts. Oh, I'm not having them, Or and sometimes I just let them tell me. I always ask, like, what are you observing about yourself? Suicidal thoughts are usually up there when they're the main thing we're working with, and then they just start leaving. And then when they don't bring it up for a while, I'm like, hey, what's going on with those suicidal thoughts? And then they're like, oh, haven't had any for a while. Or yeah, no, but I want to talk about this thing. And that's a sign that the brain is done with this and wants the next thing. Brains, when they've healed something enough for them or fully, they can't be bothered with the issue. And so they want a pain process, especially in the beginning. So they're going towards pain, and so they're off on their next project. Now, if this other piece didn't get fully processed, there will be a time when it comes back around. So I'm always like, well, let me know if anything else comes up, and I teach people how to work like this with themselves so that they can take care of themselves as well, because that's also a big part of healing. Is, can I trust myself? Can I support myself? Do I have skills with myself? If I go get in a tough spot, can I help get myself out of it? If the answer is yes, our brain allows us to do more and be more and have more, and it will stop right where it thinks we can't help ourselves, right? And so right there, we can stretch that out further too, as well. Okay, I've nerded. I totally want to go out there more, but I think I answered your question. Thanks for asking it. Take care, and thanks everyone for joining.